What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and some Hail Caesar coverage here. It's been a while, but we got to get back and finish up our series here on these different factions. So we're moving along. Today is a super short one as far as the list goes. So these are the Pechenegs, so about mid-8th through 11th centuries AD. So, and as you might guess, if you like cavalry, this is going to be a list for you. So in this list, you could take up to a quarter percent of your list as infantry or army as infantry, but again, you actually don't have to even field infantry with the Pechenegs. So, and light cavalry does have to be 75% of the cavalry that you field. Again, this is going to be a list focused really on that, and they do that pretty damn well. Divisions, fairly standard stuff here, and skirmishers here can be 50% per division, or per division 50% of the infantry. Let's word it correctly. So as I said, it is a super short list, guys, so there's not too many different things to look at here, but sometimes these shorter lists do really, even though they're not so diverse, what you have is still pretty good, and you just take lots and lots of it, and sometimes that is enough. So taking a look at their heavy cavalry, now again, we do have to have mostly light cavalry in this list, but their heavy cavalry is pretty solid as well. So, and another reason why we don't have to have a million different units in this army list is, again, we have a lot of these toolbox units. As you can see, every single unit in this Pecheneg list can shoot, and shoot pretty dang well as well. So the heavy cavalry armed with spears and bows, your standard heavy cavalry profile as far as fighting and armor is concerned, 32 points, and you still get short range of 3 and long range of 2, which is awesome. So again, there's no wasted space in this list. You don't have to take a unit that just does one thing, really. These guys can do a little bit of everything. Now, if we wanted to give them contos and bows, we up the price a little bit to 35 points, which, again, you want a little bit of extra hitting power on the combat side, that's fine. And then one unit can have fierce fighters for another point, so certainly worth taking anytime you have these like limited units that nab you a special rule. You might as well have it, so try and get them into a good combat situation. So in order to get also as many heavy cavalry as possible, because that's really the only unit in this list that's going to hit really hard, we do need to try and take as many light cavalry as possible, because they do have to be 3/4 of the list. So ideally larger games will net you a little bit more. So if you're playing like 2 or 3 divisions, trying to get as many of these heavy cavalry in, I think, is going to be useful. Now, their light cavalry is no slouch either, but again, it's going to be a lot of whittling the enemy down and then finishing up with a couple of well-timed combats. Light cavalry armed with spears and or javelins and bows as small units, and you have basically, that's going to be your most common one, and everything is feigned flight on this, so you have a virtually almost entire army of feigned flight here. Again, clash is going to be very iffy, and even sustained combats, right? You don't want to get stuck in for long with your light cavalry, so that's when those key heavy cavalry charges are going to be useful for you. But again, you get bows, short and long of 2, and feigned flight, like I said, on every single unit here. So really learning how to master that and the mechanics of the rules, and just putting that to good effect. You want to shoot the enemy to death as much as possible. Get to the point where they've soaked up a fair bit of damage, so that when you do charge, ideally you're starting to break units and start to break up their lines, and just keep constantly pouring the firepower in turn after turn after turn. And heck, you might even just outright break some units with shooting if you can pile on enough damage. Now, we do get a little bit of infantry if we want to go that route, and it's not the greatest. We'll just be perfectly honest, right? It's a light infantry warband. Usually we've seen medium and heavy warbands, but here we actually have a light warband, but it does still have a mix of spears and bows, and they are levies. 18 points is dirt cheap, though. So again, we hope that they won't have to get into combat, but nonetheless, they are still contributing to the list in the form of their shooting ability, right? So everything in this list, again, has long range shooting of 2. So you're going to just pepper away, and ideally, depending on how your battle line looks and all that, you want to start focus firing on certain units of the enemy to break them, hopefully cause some gaps in their lines, and then whatever heavy cavalry you do have, that's where you want to get in there, maybe get behind them, start getting some flank and rear charges and stuff like that. And then finally, skirmishers with bows as small units as well. So again, sprinkle those about, and again, more More and more shooty goodness here. Again, we really don't want the skirmishers in combat ever. They will just disintegrate, but also just 12 points apiece here. And despite it being such a super small list, we still have leadership 8 to round everything out. So this could be a fun list, but I think a tough one if you're newer to the game, just because you do really need to understand how to make this list work with all the light cavalry and the shooting. It's not just going to be you just form a static line and shoot away. That could be fun, could work if the dice are hot with you, but really you're going to have to maximize what the light cavalry do as the small units make maximum use of feigned flight, and then whatever heavy cavalry you can afford and did take. I really would not. I mean, it would certainly make this much harder if you decided to just forego the heavy cavalry entirely and go all light cavalry. But it could be pretty damn annoying for the opponent to deal with as well, because you'd have lots and lots of units. But nonetheless, whatever heavy cavalry you do have, they're going to need to be used perfectly. You don't want to expose them to unnecessary risks, but that heavy cavalry is going to have to, when the time is right, they're going to have to get that awesome charge in, and then hopefully break said unit because they've already had damage applied from shooting. And then, again, just either, depending on where in the line you've engaged, if it's on the flanks, break through, start mopping up the enemy's lines, or just find ways to disrupt and get the enemy out of position. But again, all the while you got to keep pouring that fire on, and then have the heavy cavalry do its thing, and hopefully not get bogged down itself, because again, the rest of your army will not want to get stuck in any kind of combat. The 5 of clash on the light cav and infantry is okay, but again, as we can see with their essentially t-shirt morale saves of 6 up, they're going to soak up damage real fast and then start breaking themselves. You don't want that. So that is a look at the Pechenegs. So really cool looking list, something different. And again, short and sweet, pretty easy to, I think, acquire as well as far as model types and all that, and could be fun to see what you come up with, painting wise for these guys. So let us know what you think of this list, guys. Would you run something like this? Would you collect it? And if you have, or have played against someone who had this in this time period, how do those games go? So drop us some comments, like, subscribe. We'll be back with more Hail Caesar for you soon.